Inspiration Nation, hello. Lee Kemp here for another week on a podcast. It is a two-man show this week. Ryan is not with us, but Jose is here. How are you this week, Joe?
Very good, thank you, Lee.
Look
All
at
the
that.
better for being back. I'm glad I'm back. I'm back. He's back in the seat. Yeah.
So people know, just we're a bit later now. We're doing our usual live. We are on YouTube and on TikTok. Just follow Joe. You'll find out when we're going live. But we're a bit later than usual. And the reason we're later than usual is Joe went to the dentist and then he went out and had some food and he had a little Guinness and he assured me he's not drunk, but then he started singing. So I will let you judge for yourselves.
Oh, great singing. Love a bit of singing. Bit of happiness.
As you bring
Always
your
good.
slurry drunk self here, Joe, what are we going to talk about this week?
We are talking about Stephen Covey's Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I love this book. And we're talking about
We must
Sharpen the
be
Saw.
we must be at number 7 now, Joe, if I'm keeping count right.
Yeah, I did just say number seven, Lee. So yes, you're absolutely right. Well
Maybe
done.
maybe I
Jumping
should
in.
do
Jumping
some
in after
listening.
I said.
I just want to talk. I just want people to know I'm
You
here.
do, will you? Right, go on, Lee. Off you go.
So, Joe, what are we talking about this week?
We're joined about number seven, Sharpen the Saw, right? So this is what we're talking about, Sharpen the Saw, right? Honestly, it's such a great book. Can you guess, Lee, or anybody on TikTok, especially M, who said, "Hey, Uncle," on TikTok, can you guess
Uncle Jose.
what Sharpen the Saw is about? Anybody? Anybody? TikTok, Lee, the audience on YouTube. Let's go.
So, is it, Joe? Is it? Oh, we've got some nice little likes on the YouTube. Thank you, people, for sending them through.
Oh,
So, is this to do with improving your skills? Something in that
it is.
vein?
You're absolutely right.
Look at
So
that.
it's
Not
actually
just a hat rack.
no, it's not just a hat rack. It's a very intelligent hat rack.
You flatter
And
me.
so this is about renewal. It's about continuous learning. So essentially, what Stephen is talking about in his book, he's talking about how you renew all the habits. So I love this one because it's basically just making sure you keep yourself on point, making sure that you keep practicing the habits that we do. And one of the things I want to talk about is a little model he's got in here, and he talks about PC, which is production capacity. That's you. So production, what you can produce, which adds value. So he calls it PC in the book, and that's page 288 of this particular version. Okay. So I want to show you on YouTube. There's a circle, and I will explain on the audio as well. So on the audio, I'll just do a little bit more on there. So the audio, for you audio listeners there, there's a circle, and on the top of the circle is physical. So there's 4 elements to self-development. One's the physical, that's exercise, nutrition, stress management. If you go across the circle, across to the right, then it's social and emotional, which is service, empathy, synergy, intrinsic security. Then if you go around the circle, half the circle down the bottom is spiritual, so it's value, clarification, commitment, study and meditation. And then lastly, there's mental, which is reading, visualizing, planning and writing. So to sharpen the saw and keep yourself developing and to keep moving forward, it's all about developing those 4, as always. So how do we develop the physical dimension? How do we develop our social and service element? How do we do the spiritual? Do we do meditation? How do we do the mental? So let me just explain how I do this. So for the physical, for me, I've currently just taken up tennis. I've done running before, as I've done the podcast. So I try and do that. I don't always succeed. I'm trying to eat healthier, but it doesn't always happen. I had a curry tonight, which was lovely, by the way. I had a curry tonight. But the whole thing is, if you can genuinely eat healthy, that's the whole thing. So exercise and nutrition. Social, like social and emotional, which is the service, empathy, synergy, intrinsic security. For me, that's the podcast, right? So that for me is service, providing a service. We do this for free. Lee, Ryan and myself, we come on and we want to share our experiences so you can learn and develop and accelerate through coaching, right? So that's that for me, that's social and emotional. And also there's that piece of it says there intrinsic security. So if we go back to some other episodes, and Lee, please feel free to jump in. We talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and where we got that sort of security part of the Maslow. So I reckon that is, for me, that's not tapping into that part. And then there's the spiritual, which is meditation. Now, spiritual doesn't mean it's religion. It just means, do you have beliefs? Do you do meditation? Do you take time out to just be by yourself and just discover more about yourself by meditating, just letting thoughts run and really contemplation? That's what that's about. Contemplating where you're going, what's happening with you, processing life essentially, and then you got the mental, where it's the mental exercise, i.e., like reading, getting new strategies in. Like for me at my work and doing this, actually, the podcast fits quite a few. You know, preparing for the podcast, like reading this. I read this before coming to the podcast, so things like that. You know, all the other coaching books that I've got as well, like Coaching for Performance. Where's the Coaching Habit gone? It's around here somewhere. But there's a Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay Steiner. I don't know. I probably popped it somewhere. But I love them. Oh, where was it gone? I wrote it here a minute ago.
He's lost it. He's lost it.
Oh no! It's a great book, by the way. What's happened to that book? Anyway, but I love coaching. So as you know, I just really struck. Where's that book gone? It's like disappeared off the face of the earth. It's weird. But I was using it today because I was doing coaching training today. And that's what I think is weird why it's disappeared. I'll try and find it in a minute. But essentially, these are the things that help you renew. I wrote in my journal the other day, just to remind myself, Lee, what you were talking about earlier about non-judgment, being kind to yourself, kindness to others, and also that stoic practice. So those are sorts of things that I do following that circle. Now, it's not perfect. You know, I don't do things perfectly. I fall off sometimes, like everybody else. But this is what this is about. So, Lee, I'm just going to ask you a question now. What are the things that you do to self-renew and essentially, you know, sharpen your saw? Like, in fact, just for us, you answer that. There is a little story in here because I quite like this little story. It says, just let me read this. So, I'll read the story out of the book. It says, suppose you were to come upon someone in the woods working feverishly to saw down a tree. You ask them, what are you doing? And the guy says, or the person says, can't you see? Comes the impatient reply, I'm sawing down a tree. You look exhausted, you exclaim. How long have you been at it? Over 5 hours, he returns. And I'm beat. This is hard work. Well, why don't you take a break for a few minutes and sharpen that saw? You inquire. I'm sure it would go a lot faster. I don't have time to sharpen the saw, the person says emphatically. I'm too busy sawing. So what's that saying is that you've got to take time out to improve yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to slow down. You're not going to be better. You're not going to improve. Anyway, Lee, I'm going back to your question. Sorry, I just trampled over that a little bit. But what are things that you do? What practices you do to sharpen your saw?
That was a good. I like that story, by the way. And there's different versions of that, but it is that sometimes people get so caught up in the doing, they don't take that step back to do something that can make things easier for themselves. And I think that's a really good illustration of that. It's the same as the kind of the illustration of the person with a bucket trying to scoop all the water out of a boat that's got a massive hole in it, and you know, I haven't got time to fix the hole, so I've got to get all this water out. And it's the same sort of thing. And I think it's quite a powerful analogy, that one, or metaphor, whichever one of those words suits it best. Will you do me a favour? Can you go round the circle again and tell me each of the four things, and we can talk about each of them in response to your question?
Yeah, sure. Basically, let me just get that. Right, so the first one is physical. So,
and what I'll do this as well, this one, it resonates with me and it makes sense and it lands. So I know that needs to happen. I would say on and off. For about 4 months last year, I went to the gym and I've not been since. On and off a bit of walking, been doing a bit of dieting recently. So it's something I do and I'm conscious of. I could probably do a bit better with, but that one just makes sense to me on the physical side. You know, we're all aware of needing to do it, and I think, as I'm sure is the same for you, Joe, as you get a bit older, you get a bit more aware of that as well.
Sure.
And the importance of it. My diet now is certainly a lot better than it was 10 years ago and 20 years ago and 30 years ago. So I do stuff. I'm conscious of that one, and it makes sense, and it doesn't fill me with a sense of dread when you say it, like, oh my God, I'm way behind on doing something there. So I think
you're doing your best, right?
On the physical, yes.
Yeah. Okay, do you want the next one?
Yes.
Social and emotional. This is service, empathy, synergy, intrinsic security. So synergy is the bit where you're working together with people, actually. So that's just to say that. Yeah. And intrinsic security.
And we do that. We do that with the podcast. There's a trio of us. It's a thing I'm very conscious of within work or other things I do as well. So I think I've learnt to tick that box as I've got older. Intrinsic security. So that's the inward stuff, isn't it? So
yeah.
And is that purely in that kind of social interactions with other people? Is that how you register that?
Yeah, I would say service, isn't it?
Yeah.
So service, empathy.
And the other word, so the other word I think goes hand in hand with service is purpose. And we talk through lots of different things. I currently have it's on my desktop here. I call it my 8 a.m. list that I work through and do bits and bobs, and I've got things on, but they're all about achieving something. And I feel like through work and home life and things I do with my friends and my extra little bits and bobs hobbies, I feel like I'm in a good place for that kind of purpose and service thing at the moment. I do want to make a bit of time maybe to do some sort of volunteering thing. There's a lot of virtual things you can do with that as well as physical now, so that's on my radar, and I think that's something I'll dig into in the second half of this year. So I've got a reasonable filled up bar on that one, I'd say, but some ideas I want to do to help just kind of develop that a bit further. And I do think it's in that kind of, whatever it looks like, that kind of volunteering space.
Yeah, and I think that's that thing that, like you say, ties into the purpose, doesn't it? I think that's the key with it. It ties into purpose a lot. Do you want the next one?
Yes.
Spiritual.
Yes, I do.
Spiritual.
That what when you went through them, that one didn't land with me so much. That was like well, I don't need to worry about that.
Shall I just read it? So there's value clarification, so that'd be your own personal value system. So are you sticking to it? I suppose the conscious part of, when you're looking at your conscience, I suppose, are you sticking to like good human values? I suppose that's sort of commitment, study, and meditation. They're the sort of 4 subheadings.
We know I had my little dalliance with some meditation probably a couple of years ago, in fact, now, Joe, probably more than a couple of years ago. In fact, it's way back in the archive, people. You can hear it in I'm going to say it must be an episode in the 30s, 40s, somewhere that sort of range, I would hazard a guess. And I see the benefits of it, and there's things we've talked again in another podcast, my kind of that driving time after doing some odd jobs and creative brain starts to kick in and all that sort of stuff. So I think I do that self-awareness bit. It doesn't land with me under the banner of spiritual, but I know what the things are that you're kind of referring to there. But that's probably, I think, whether it's true or whether it's perception, I'd say that's probably a weaker area of the development, something that probably needs a bit of focus if I was going to do that.
Yeah, because you're talking about meditation. Someone said something to you, I think it was an earlier podcast about meditation. And you're talking about something, you tried it and you quite liked it. What was it? I can't remember what it was.
You got me to do it. I did it during the recording.
Yeah,
I came back in the room and I was all
someone
floaty
else
heady.
that sort of said something to you, like I think it's in the moment stuff. Actually, that's probably where I'm trying to go with it. The in the moment stuff. When you're talking about,
or the mindfulness type
like
of thing. Yeah?
Mindfulness. That's it. So from what you said in the previous, that's where I think it sits with you at the minute.
That's true.
That
and that is something I'm conscious
because
of.
that is that intrinsic reflection. It's in the moment. It's pretty spiritual because you're tapping into that in the moment, living in the moment, being in the moment, knowing where you are, knowing where you sit. So anyway, I'll let you expand on that.
No, I agree.
That might be something triggered.
Oh, I've got a Lee echo coming through, Joe. Back away from your microphone.
Oh, I've not done anything. Oh,
there we go.
Is that better?
Oh no, I'm still there. No, that's better.
Is that better? I may have to be closer, possibly. May have to be closer. Hold on.
That's right. Might be a slight echo. People will be good with it. So no, I think you're right. I think the mindfulness, and obviously we talked about it quite a lot over the last year. Something I'm quite conscious of now. So you're right. That is where that does sit with me. In the more, in the moment, taking things in, being able to compartmentalise stuff, appreciate the moments and the little things. So I agree, and it's something I was very skeptical of about 5 years ago, but I really, really believe in now.
Yeah, I think that's your spiritual journey right there. Honestly, I really believe that's the start of it.
It's very true.
Definitely for me, the meditation was my start of mine. And in fact, we talk about Eckhart Tolle, and I'm sort of hang on this one a bit because it can be one of those areas where people think it's a bit religious. Because I had real hang-ups about religion, and if you go back in the podcast, you'll know that I did lose my mum, but we had a discussion about religion, didn't we? I was quite vocal about it. It triggered me quite a lot because I had quite an upbringing with it, and I felt it quite controlling. But I'm not saying religion's bad, because I think religion can be good, and it can help people through difficult times. And I think the spiritual bit is the bit that helps you through those difficult times, that spiritual renewal, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's meditation, whatever works for you. But I think that's a real, like you say, I think that's probably something that's missing from quite a few people, potentially, that spiritual bit, because it can feel a little bit, like you say, for people that are probably like yourself, like a little bit red and want to go for it and stuff like that can seem a little bit woolly, a little bit bit woo woo, right? It can feel a little bit like that, or people can think of it, but it's not. It really is something that's powerful, and the fact that you said you're quite skeptical about it, and then you tried it, and it's starting to come. I think it just pays homage to it. And people like Ray Dalio swear by meditation. Tom Bilyeu, they swear by meditation, and these people are just massive performers. So there's definitely something in it, and I think, you know, if we're all watching this, it's something we can definitely practice. So yeah, I'm trying to tap into that, and definitely felt better for doing it. And as I've got older, I've just appreciated things more, like watching, you know, looking at the garden, appreciating things, just enjoying that moment and the things around you, and how it all works. It's ridiculous how things work, really. But yeah, I think as I say, Lee, I think you are doing that from what you said on the podcast. Yeah. So on the last one then.
And yes, number 4
is mental. So this is reading, visualizing, planning, and writing. So I suppose it's mental agility, I suppose it's referring to for me.
And as you came back into it, that's where I'm then kind of moving back into my comfort zone, albeit maybe I wasn't as far out of it with the other as my initial perception was. So, well, we reference it here. I have a plan for the month for certain things I want to achieve. I've got a budget sheet we use for the month for things we're trying to do financially. Same within work. I kind of work in a world of like backlogs and short planning sessions and all that sort of jazz. So I think in terms of that planning piece, I think I do that like professionally and personally, short term and long term. And over, you know, long term plans are quite fuzzy, short term are a lot more crystallised and clear. So I do a lot of that. Not so much reading, but I do the, you know, the positive social media stuff like we talked about before, Joe. So like LinkedIn, and gravitate to things I like and keep, you know, particularly at the moment, I'm quite into researching some of the stuff that's going on with like AI and this whole chat GPT thing and all of that. So I do, but it's like little bite-sized chunks of reading of things rather than like I'll sit down and read a whole book in an evening or something like that. So I think, and that's natural. I don't really have to try to do that. I've just made that part of my routine.
Yeah, I relate to that because I get emails about stoicism and things like that. You know, I get emails, sometimes I post them and he goes, oh my God, Jose's posted a massive great thing on the chat again. It's spread to 2 messages. What's going on, right? But I tend to do that, so that's mine. Again, I love that. As well as reading books, I love that. And I think you get quite a bit from that because you actually just, we're going to share that. And while you share it, you start learning about it because you're sharing it. It's
Absolutely
quite a powerful thing. Or telling someone about it. Actually, Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits talks about if you learn something, you pass it on, it's more, you learn it better because you're trying to explain it to someone else, which I think is a really, really good thing. So that's it, really. So yeah, so pretty goodly. Anything else you want to add to that, like from your point of view? Any other sort of overarching thoughts in there?
I just think it's that, and we talk about it a lot, you know, one of the underlying themes of our podcast is continuous development and opening people up to the idea of that. And I think that's what that smacks of, is you're never done on your journey. And I think I quite like the way it kind of frames it into those four areas, because I think certainly for me it'd be very easy, like I talked about, there's a few of them where I'd gravitate to those type of aspects and probably neglect some of the others, and actually I might do something where I just kind of plan a little bit around making sure I'm ticking all 4 of those boxes.
I think it's really important that we don't look for perfection. I think if people are listening and watching, don't aim for perfection. Just notice like what Lee's done, what we've done. Like, that one's falling off a bit. Maybe we need to put a little bit more attention on that. But just do something.
But it's an onward journey, though, isn't it? You're never gonna. It's not like you'll be complete. You're always just trying to improve and get better and see ways to do it, and challenge yourself.
And I think that's the thing. Sometimes you say, we've got to complete that, or it's got to be finished. But it never is finished. I think if you just relax and know that it's not, you never ever sort of finish the painting. Your painting's always in flow, really. You just want to add a little bit here, add a little bit there. You're like it's like a creator. It's like you're always just tweaking little things, little 1%. The 1%'s right. Those little 1% improvements that add up over time. And I think that's so important with this as well. Don't aim don't go, I'm going to blast it all in one day and just going to go like, and then you just get exhausted, don't you? Just exhaust. Just take one thing, like take physical, mental, just like do one small thing, and just build on that. Just slowly. I mean, that's what James Clear talks about in his book, Tom, how it's just do it small. Start small, make it really achievable. Do one action a week, even it's just to start, and then you just build a habit, and then it'll be like Lee and we've got these little habits that we do, but we can still be a little bit better. For me, I still need to read a bit more, but this podcast is making me read a bit more because I want to share these. And so so basically this podcast made me reread the chapters essentially, which is then
Reinforcing
really
it all in
fired
your head,
up.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and it really fired up that whole thing. Oh, I need to do more of this because I've read them. It may remind me of things that I still need to work on, like you, Lee. Like it's remind you of those things we need to work on. So yeah, I love that. Anything else you want to add to that, Lee?
Not on that particular bit.
Yeah, because I wanted to add some things. Because when you said about meaning and purpose, there's a few things like Viktor Frankl. I've highlighted a couple of things as well. Like I'll highlight a few things just to show you that I've had a little read. But you've referenced Viktor Frankl and Finding Meaning and Purpose. If you've not read that book, I recommend you read it. Man's Search for Meaning. It should be really sort of person's search for meaning because it actually applies to anybody, and it's lovely. And there's a guy that I never even heard of that I just reread this book. And this is the thing about these beautiful books like this. Like, there's a guy called George Bernard Shaw, and this is a passage from. I don't know who this person is. I need to look him up. I got no idea. But he's got this passage in this book which I thought was quite good. It said, "This is the true joy in life, that being used for a purpose recognised by yourself as a mighty one, that being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community, and as long as I live it is my privilege to do for it whatever I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, but the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle to me. It's a sort of splendid torch which I've got to hold up for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations." I find it's really inspiring. You know, I think that whole thing for me with this one was the fact that, you know, I did go through a fat part of my life where I think, well, why aren't I getting this? Why isn't this happening? You know, almost like the world should revolve around you, but it doesn't. And that if you want something, you have to put in the work. And luck will come. We talked about luck as a skill, right? If you do the work, then you're more likely to be prepared if an opportunity comes to take. And we talked about this before, right?
100%, yeah.
And this is why I love that passage, because it talks about those things. And sometimes we think, this is why I didn't really like The Secret, the book The Secret. I don't know if everyone, you've read that. Like if you just visualize and imagine it's going to happen, you have to take action, you know, for things to happen. Where, you know, I think they've evolved it now, but you know, you really do have to do something for things to happen. You have to impress upon the world. So there you go. So that was that. I really enjoyed that.
George Bernard Shaw, by the way, was an Irish playwright and political activist, born 1856, died 1950.
Blimey.
He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1925.
Wow.
There you go.
How good
Facts
is that a Google?
Facts.
I love that.
That's a little Google.
Do you know what? Thanks for that, Lee, because now I've learnt that. Now
See?
it's
Every
inspiring,
day,
right?
every day's a chance to learn.
To think that was that long ago as well. It's like philosophy, isn't it? It's like this stuff is not new. This stuff is, we're standing on the shoulder of giants here, right? We are trying to learn through the experience of others, aren't we? Like they've been through that life, and we can learn and take the shortcuts and, you know, get ahead of the game a little bit to really do these things. So I love that. How are we doing for time, Lee? Have I got time for just one more bit?
You can do one more bit. I will let you, and then then I'll wrap us up.
All right. So what I wanted to do really is share the application of this. So this is the application of the Sharpen the Saw. So some application suggestions of Sharpen the Saw. It says, number one is make a list of activities that would help you keep in good physical shape, that would fit your lifestyle, and that you could enjoy over time. In fact, I need to write something down of that. Ooh. I need to do something with this, and I'm going to write down something. Remind me. Just something. I'll write it down. Okay. Second is, number two is select one of the activities and list it as a goal in your personal role area for the coming week. At the end of the week, evaluate your performance. If you didn't make your goal, was it because you subordinated to a genuinely higher value, or did you fail to act with integrity to your values? So essentially, did you follow through? Or did you just go, do you know what, I can't be bothered? So again, just assess that, quite like that. Number three, make a similar list of renewing activities in your spiritual and mental dimensions. In your social and emotional area, list relationships you would like to improve or specific circumstances with which public victory would bring greater effectiveness. Select one item in each area to list as a goal for the week, implement and evaluate. So I imagine just for that one, just simply because it's a bit, I think there's some stuff you'd have to read before that, but just concentrate on spiritual and social, emotional area for that. Just for the circles, just listen back to the podcast and just focus on the spiritual and social areas. What are you going to do in those areas? I'd probably simplify that in that area. And then number 4, commit to write down specific sharpen the saw activities in all your 4 dimensions every week to do them and evaluate your performance and results. So what you can do every week in one of those areas, I don't think I even do that, but just to start with 1% right. But this is proper work. It's really hard.
Yeah, I might do later on. As you know, I've got some stuff coming up, Joe. But second half of the year, I might do a month where I go in on that, writing down each week, making a plan, seeing what it does.
Well, it could be on your backlog, your life list, right?
It could.
It will be.
I'll add it to
my backlog, right?
Yes, I will add it to my backlog.
Do you know what? I really am annoyed about that book. That's so annoying.
Well, it's going to go into a grumpy rant before we start the podcast.
Just annoyed. I just like, where is that book gone? Anyway, I just wanted to one thing about this, and there was I was speaking to someone the other day. Someone who listens to the podcast, and they said there's a saying that's going around at the minute about sort of development, personal development, self-development. It's going around. I don't know if you've heard it, Lee, but it said you want 3 hobbies. 1 hobby to make you rich, a hobby to keep you fit, and a hobby to keep you creative.
I like that.
And I really love that. So I'm thinking, what is that? How's that work for me? And I'll ask you in a minute. So the hobby to make you rich, well, that could be the podcast because that could take off, right? That could take off. Hobby to keep fit would be tennis for me. Like that's keep me fit.
It's the tennis.
And then the creative bit, I just think for me is the podcast as well. That keeps you creative, like doing different things. So and the rich bit, I say, if we get more subscribers, keep subscribing. What Lee's going to do in a minute. We get advertising revenue. We could just do this for free, and you get the benefit, but we get that almost what's it called, passive income because people keep watching it. So don't forget to share it. Louis said, "How's your day?" It's very good. Thank you for asking. How are you, Louis? So Lee, that was my last bit there. So I don't know if you want to do your shilling or you've got any comments on that. Actually, have you got any thoughts on the hobbies?
Well, I'll give you quickly. I said gym on and off for fit. Could do better with it. I think this is my creative. And I've got some ideas for a rich, but I've not done a few passive income things, but I've not done anything on that yet. So I'm probably a hobby short on my list right now.
Quite like that hobby thing. But you do wrestling, don't you? Is there anything in that?
No, that's more of I don't know if it's a hobby. It's a fandom.
Okay. All right.
Could be.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe
I'm sure
it's a
with the wrestling because you love that, don't you?
I do. I definitely do, as we all know. And actually, so I was going to do this for you last week, Joe, because Joe likes cutting out some good little shots of us to put on the thumbnails on YouTube. So as you referenced it, I'm going to do my shilling, but I'm going to do it with this on, Joe, so you can put it on the
oh, that's really good.
thing. So
I love that.
Head over to inspirationnation.org.uk for everything to do with the podcast. Details coaching service, sign up for Joe's newsletter, get your merchandise. I'd show you some, but I'm a bit way down. I don't know if Joe's got a mug there at the moment to show us. Follow us on social media at ListenToIN, ListenToIN, and look for Joe everywhere. Just put Jose Noya Inspiration Nation into your Google machine and you will find all sorts of Joe. Follow us on YouTube and TikTok, and you can join in live as people have today with the podcast, as well as loads of other great content, including this shot of me with my replica wrestling belt, because that's how cool
it's not
I am,
replica,
Joe.
it's real one, isn't it? It's a real one, Lee, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I won it. I won this.
You won it against Rocky, or was it his name? Thunderlips for Rocky 3, right?
Don't pretend you know what's going on. You're quite good with that, though. I'll give you that.
That's why I reference the reference. Hulk Hogan, Rocky 3, Thunderlips.
There you go. That was a good reference. I like that. That is going way. What's that? 1980, 1981?
Well, you're a Rocky fan, and I so
something like that.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it is. It is. It's about it is 80. I reckon it is 81. Yeah, it's around that time. You're well good.
Know my stuff.
Love
so
that.
yes, we thank everyone. Last thing to say before me and Joe ramble off into the sunset: if you like what you are hearing, tell friends, tell family. That's what helps the podcast grow. Leave us a review, share our content. All of that really helps us, and we appreciate each and every one of you that does that. Right,
we do.
I think all that's left, Joe, is for me to count us down. We'll say 3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation.
Inspiration Nation.
Catch you guys later.
Catch you guys later, TikTok. Thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to share it. Do you like Rocky Biscuit?